All right, welcome to today's video. Slightly different setup because it is Beyond the Button episode 2. It's been a minute since we did episode 1. I'm Justin Tolman here at Xtero, and today's Beyond the Button, we're going to be taking a look at how to read exif tags. And specifically, I'm doing this topic today because next week, as of the recording of this video, details down below, I'm going to be presenting at CyberCon on this topic, much more expanded. So we're going to see some of my content out of the slide exclusive to this video because we won't be going over it there. Just too much information. So this will kind of set the stage of what we'll be talking about. My topic is on data carving specifically and how to combine the tools capabilities as well as your capabilities as a person, as an investigator, are what will make your case more full and get as much data as you possibly can. So we'll be taking a look at that next Thursday, Cyber Social Hub. I present at 8 a.m. Pacific time, which would be about 11 a.m. Eastern time. Check that out, Cyber Social Hub. There'll be links again down below. Hope to see you there. And I'm going to turn my camera off for this because of the amount of data on my slides. I don't really have somewhere I can put my face without covering up some of the data. So, just audio only on this one and the slides. All right, let's jump into the topic for this video. All right, so like I said, we are jumping into this presentation. So be sure to show up at the conference to see the whole presentation and how we got to this point and all that sort of information. So real quick, let's talk about exif data. What is it and why do we care? So exif data stores information about a photograph embedded within the image itself. And this is important because it makes the attributes that it's storing more resilient in the event of data movement as well as deletion because it's embedded inside. exif is supported by the JPEG format, HEIC, which is a newer format used by both iOS and Android. And of course, legacy cameras are where we started with so that we could store information about when a photo was taken, where it was taken. It was designed for photography. So a lot of the exif tags that you're going to find within an image are to do with photography, f-stop and shutter speed. And maybe those two are the same thing. I don't know. I'm not a photographer, but there are a lot of tags within exif, over 200. And not all of those are going to be forensically relevant. If we look over here at the table on the right, we see that we have numerous attributes here that are relevant to forensics. Date, time, of course, we care about. What type of device information, and then, of course, location. We can also get operating system version, and really important is that exif can store thumbnails. And that is really important, especially to the larger scope of this presentation. Again, show up Thursday, Cyber Social Hub, and check it out. Get the full context. Cool. So let's take a look at tags. And again, we're going beyond the button. So we're going to take a look at how they're structured and what we can learn from them. So we have our attribute over here, date, etc. We just saw this. Now we're going to expand this out. So each of these attributes has a tag hex code that tells the program that's reading it where and how to read and what is stored here, etc. And these are those hex codes for each of these different things. You'll notice that the GPS information all has the same one. Again, that's covered in more depth in the full presentation. But again, if you were looking for GPS information, you would look for the hexadecimal characters 8825. That's going to contain the information necessary to parse out your GPS information. And in this other table, we talk about whether this information is in the first 512 bytes of the graphic image file, the first 512 bytes of the JPEG. Again, more context in the full presentation, but you can see that most of these, at least the content itself, is not in the first 512, even if the tag itself is in the first 512. So how can that happen? Let's take a look at the next slide. So let's take a look at date. The tag is called date time if you were to look in an exif parsed out view. And the tag hex code that we would be looking in here for is hex 0132. So we have a JPEG image here. You can see the FFD8, FFE1 here. And then we also know that we have exif data because it says exif right there, of course. But we also have the TIFF header here of 4D, which indicates that we're going to be reading our data in Big Indian. So we'll go ahead and advance our stuff here so that we can see the information related to this tag hex code. So we find 0132, which indicates that the information that this area here will describe is for date time. And that's 2 bytes, obviously, 0132. The next 2 bytes indicate the data type of the information that it's going to hold. Okay, so we'll see this is text data. All right. And then we have the data size in hex. Of course, this is 4 bytes in length. So we get our length of the data that we want to look at. Okay. And then we have the offset from the TIFF header. What is the TIFF header? Well, I just kind of mentioned it, but it's this 4D in this case, or if the data was meant to be read as Little Indian, it would be hexadecimal 4949. Okay, and that would tell you how you need to read the data. Specifically, it's going to tell the program how to read the data, but yeah, so you have that information there. So we have this offset given to us here. And when I say offset, it's a count, again, in bytes from a certain position within a file. A lot of times offsets are the beginning of the file. You have to keep in mind when dealing with exif offsets that it is not from the beginning of the file, but from the TIFF header, which is this area right here. So we would start counting from right here. So it's 184 bytes from this location. So that puts us right here. And if we look over here in the ASCII side, we can see that the date that the photo was taken, 2016-09-08, 17/16/23, and that would be local time in this case. So that's how you read that using this hex code. You find that hex code, the next 2 specify the data type, then the next 4 specify the data size, and then the last one will specify the offset. And notice that the tag is here, but the content is down below. And this is how they all function. So if you needed to parse that information out, you've got the date time and you could move on to the next tag that you wanted to take a look at. Okay, you could move on to date time original or the make and the lens model. Now, why might you need to know this? Well, that's kind of the context of this whole presentation is when data carving, you don't always get the full image. Some of it can be corrupt. Maybe you only carve out the thumbnail of the full graphic that you're looking for and you want to get more information. That is the context of the whole presentation. So knowing how to parse out and read exif out of the hex is useful when dealing with corrupt images. And that's where we combine tool and investigator to get the best evidence out of our content. Last thing I want to end with here is you'll see a link there on the screen. That is the standard for exif. You can find out all the information about the tags, including their hex tags, how they're structured, all that sort of information. Remember that not all of them are forensically relevant, but if you ever needed to know how exif is stored, there's your link. That contains information about exif tags that are in compliance with the standard. The manufacturer of a camera, say whether it's Apple, Google, Canon, whatever the case may be, they have the ability to add extended or private tags to the exif data, which would not be found in that document. I share that link later in the presentation when we talk about some of that specific information. All right, I hope this quick video gives you an insight about how to look at exif data from the hex. And if you want to know more, check down below in the description for the link to join CyberCon on Thursday, December 16th. I present at 8 a.m. Thursday morning. Check it out for the full context of this presentation. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you at CyberCon, and we'll see you again next week with another video.